the idea behind this is Myers-Briggs is built on kind of what happens in your brain when you take in information and you make decisions. And it also gives you an idea of why you do the things you do, why you make decisions the way you make them based on your letter style. You may look and say, yeah, that's not really me. And that's okay, because you're not fitting into a box, even though there are 16 boxes. You're not necessarily in a box, and it depends on how strong you are. I think the highest I saw in here was a 19 and a 1. Odds are you're going to feel pretty strongly about the category. The other thing, so let's say we get into this and you're like, I just don't even know. Go back and look at the specific questions that tie to the scoring sheet. So I'm more of an I now than I used to be. I used to be a huge E. So I went back and I looked at some of the questions. And I think, part of why I did it was I put myself in, let's be real, where do you really get your energy from? And then I kind of looked at the question and I said, it makes sense. I'm a little different today than I used to be. So it's based on the E and the I, which I wrote up here. And when we talk about extroversion, a lot of people say that means you have to be gregarious, really talkative, blah, 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 charismatic. It's really where you get your energy. So when you ask yourself at the end of the day, when you've had a busy day and you go home, what do you want to do? Do you want to go down to the neighbor's house, grab a drink and chit chat? Or do you want to go sit and look out your back patio, look at the flowers, pet your dog, right? So sensing and intuition is how you take in information. Do I like numbers or do I like concepts? Abstract or literal? Thinking and feeling is how you make a decision. Do I look at a logical path for making a decision, or do I think about how people feel? And then judging and perceiving, it doesn't mean you're judgmental. Okay, judging and perceiving is how you orient your life. I will say this is the most observable one. Yes, you can observe extroversion and introversion, but people can act like extroverts but really be introverts. And we're having a conversation back here. If your job demands it, you might have to be extroverted. But it might actually just suck the life out of you, and you got to recharge by being alone when you get home. Likewise, if you're introverted, you're in a job that requires you to work alone a lot. When you get home, you're like, I got to go do something and be with people. This one is how you orient your life, such as organizing your thoughts, organizing your space, orderly, clutter-free. I tend to look at people and say, show me your car and I'll tell you which one you are. Doesn't mean your car is always clean if you're a J, but if it's not, it may become very frustrating for you. Doesn't mean you can live it. The two middle ones, these are the ones that are the most difficult to see. It's how you take in information and it's how you make decisions. And this is a conversation I really want you to have as you go back to the workplace. Who are the people you work with? Where do you think they fall in these two scales? And how can you tailor your message to them so they get it? Perfect example. I said 10 and 10 and 10. Well, you can't get 10 and 10 out of that box on the left, because I take in literal information. We're looking at the math. We're looking at the numbers. That's not possible. I'm an N. Whatever. Something like that. Okay, so these are the 16 boxes. Why do we care? It can help us work better. It can help us resolve conflicts. It can help us make decisions. When we look at these 4 components, we'll look at them as how you make decisions. Do you look at possibilities, or do you first examine the facts? Do you consider the logical decision, or do you think about how implementing that in your organization will go? How will people accept it? How will people buy into it, per se? So it's a combination of all of these. If you're working with only S's and only T's, you're going to miss possibilities and the impact on people. If you're only working with possibilities and people, you're going to miss the logical decision based on data. For example, somebody's laid-back style, thinking out loud and initiating change, can be perceived by someone else as a lack of motivation, an annoying distraction, or fixing things that weren't already broken. So there are no right or wrong answers. It's just how you approach things. All right, this is just a theory. It's an explanation for behaviors. It's not an excuse, and it can't solve everything. This is just one personality style inventory. There are a lot of different ones out there. And then they have this strengths finder, and there's so many different things. So it's all about preferences. What do you prefer? This is how we interact with our outer world. Extroverts tend to direct things outside, talking to people, interacting with people. Introverts like to reflect on ideas and their experiences. So now we're looking at the N and the S, or the S and the N, whichever. This is how you take in information. So this gets to, would you rather have a concept presented or a detailed plan presented? So people who are sensing tend to like real, tangible information. And they want to be able to see it, taste it, feel it, hear it, smell it. No. An intuitive person is more likely to see the big picture. They'll look at patterns and themes and interrelationships. So like when I looked over here, what are some themes? An N's very easy to say, oh, generality. Here you get an example. Of course, I see the big picture, literally versus the big picture, right? And this is, you're looking at the clouds. I see an ice cream cone, a dog, and oh man, blah, blah, blah. I see the type of cloud it is, right? The formation is a cumulus cloud as opposed to animals in the cloud. Which one is the S? The one on the right or the one on the left? S is literal information. One on the right's the S, the one on the left is the N. All right, so the next one, the T and the F. The T and the F is how we make a decision. This is the processing piece. Once again, this is going on the inside of your head, and you don't always verbalize it unless you're a strong E, and then you think out loud. So the way you decide, thinking looks at logic, accuracy, the objective perspective. Kind of look down on the big picture and say, that's easy, let's roll. An F wants to consider harmony. How is this going to roll out? What does it look like? How are people going to feel? How are they going to react? Are we making the right decision? Sometimes thinking is the best way to go. Fire alarm goes off. I know this building best. This is what we're doing. Peace out. Don't care if you're upset about it, right? And then in some situations, if it's a significant change that you have time to make and gather input, you can combine the two. But you have a preference for one over the other. So you look at these two, looking at the credentials, the other hiring person's looking at the culture fit or the connection. One's more thinking oriented, one's more feeling oriented. All right, so judging and perceiving. This is how you approach the outside world. It's just kind of a weird way to say it. Judging people with a strong J typically come to conclusions fairly quickly. They want to move on, organize, plan. My biggest word for this is J's like closure. I'm achievement oriented. I also want to get it done now. I want it checked off my list. That's like a big friend. If I can't get it checked off because I'm waiting on an answer from someone else, it drives me nuts. I'm checking my email. I reached out last night at 7 o'clock. I haven't heard anything at 7 a.m. They're not working, right? But I'm like, I got to get this answer. I want it now, right? P's are typically looking for more information before coming to conclusions. Well, let's gather a little bit more data. Let's think about this a little bit. What are we going to do on Saturday? Let's just figure it out. I planned, when my kids were little, it was Disney World on steroids. This is where we're starting, this is where we're going, this is where we're showing up, this is what it looks like. This is how it goes, right? So I wonder if Charlie's taking time management. So a J is more likely to write down everything they did and check it off their list. If I don't feel like I'm productive, like by noon, I go make stuff up that I did that act like I was. And the other thing to keep in mind is if your numbers are fairly close, you probably highlighted in both categories. And that's normal. And it's not to say you don't ever, if you're an S, that you don't ever use your N tendencies, because they're all inside of us. This is just based on the route you prefer to go. Kind of look at it when you're in a situation that's stressful. You're gonna go toward the one that's your highest preference. So if I'm really stressed, I'm more likely to be S. I'm with the details right here, right now. I'm more likely to be an F, right? Okay, well, how's it going to affect people? We got to think about that real quick. And I'm going to be a J. We got to do this orderly, in line, and proceed. We can't go away from the. That's my initial when under stress and under pressure, you're going to go to your preference. When you have an opportunity to sit back and assess the situation, you're going to decide which one of these is best at the time and then you'll most likely use it.